Okay, today I'm going to be joined by Mr. Dan Carraher, aka iteach on the various internet forums. How are you, Dan?
Pretty good. How about you, Ralph?
Good. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself personally?
Yeah, obviously my name's Dan. I grew up for the most of my life in Florida. All my golfing life in Jacksonville, Florida, kind of right outside of the TPC Sawgrass area. Lucky enough to get started golf very young. Played a lot of sports growing up. Um, Golf's pretty much the only thing that I stuck with for any length of time, other than skateboarding. Really just, kind of from day one, I kind of have an addictive personality and just kind of took to golf. And it was something that wasn't a team sport, didn't have to rely on anybody. Could kind of go out there by yourself, practice, and pretty much it was all put on you. You can't cheat. You can't rely on anybody else to help you. You either got it or you don't.
So, what about your golfing? How'd you get involved with golf?
Started golfing, believe I was just under the age of 3. I know that for my 4th birthday, I actually flew up. At the time, I was living in Tampa, up here to Jacksonville to play golf with my aunt and uncle at the time. I was pretty much all I wanted for my birthday, and probably the highlight of my year was to get to fly on an airplane for the first time and get to play golf, which at the time, nobody in my family golfed that I lived. My mom doesn't golf. Nobody that I had around golf. So being able to actually go out and play was something that only happened more on kind of special occasions. Usually because somebody else. Once I got older, started taking it a little more seriously, started entering some junior golf programs, but never really got very good very fast. That's kind of the turtle, kind of very slow to get good. I'd say I probably didn't break 100 until I was at least 10 years old. But all of a sudden, kind of things came together. I was always self-taught. I didn't have money for lessons growing up. But starting at the age of about, 12 or 13, I started hanging out at the golf course a lot. And one of the instructors there happens to be a GSEM in the golfing machine named Cooper Osborne. And at the time, I used to just kind of sit, watch them give lessons, and then kind of just kind of work on my own, some of the things I overheard. And by the age of 15, I was a scratch golfer. And I think from the age of 13 to 18, I think I won 5 straight junior club championships. And it kind of went from there.
So you went. That was basically your junior golf career. Okay, next.
Well, I had planned to play golf at the University of Central Florida. And kind of had, I would say, a little bit of a misunderstanding. I thought I could walk on the team at the time. Something that I talked to the coach about. And I did early action, which is where you commit to a school back in like September. And if you're accepted, you can't change schools. So what ended up happening is he recruited 3 top 20 juniors in the country and had no need for me on the team. So I didn't have a spot, but I was already committed to going to that school. So I couldn't transfer anything. I chose to, kind of school was more important than golf at the time. I was actually a double engineering major, and kind of about a year and a half into school, started playing golf, kind of more serious, ended up turning pro at a very young age because I didn't have anything really else to compete in. And there's 2 different mini tours that kind of hover around the Central Florida, Orlando area. So I was able to regular basis, kind of like it was back in the junior golf days. And I would say about 2.5 years into college, I decided that engineering wasn't something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And with the approval of my family, I dropped out of school and started teaching full time and then playing. I would say generally probably played 2 or 3 events in a row, maybe every 6 weeks. I never played full time because I never really had the money, never had any sponsors to kind of go full bore. So I'd work and teach for 6 or 8 weeks and then take 3 weeks off, practice, go play a little bit, and kind of come back and teach some more.
Okay, so what led you to teaching?
Uh, Realized I wasn't good enough. Um, in reality, it got to the point to where to be at that level, you have to pretty much devote 100% of your time to getting better in playing. And really reality set in when not only was I kind of just worse than breaking even. You know, I think I started out with a little bit of a nest egg, made some money, and then things kind of started sliding. I was a little bit in the hole and realized that teaching wise, I enjoyed the teaching part way more than playing. So I would not practice. And I kind of realized that if you go a week without hitting balls, it's kind of tough to play for any money. So eventually just got to the point to where teaching golf was way more kind of personally fulfilling and got more enjoyment out of it than playing, which is, as you know, can be pretty stressful and it's not always the most fun thing.
Yeah, I know from playing. I mean, I've always been an amateur. I actually have passed the PAT playability test many years ago, but yeah, it's. I can imagine if you're playing and trying to make a living doing it, it can get stressful. So let's talk about your teaching and your philosophies, who's influenced you, and what exactly it is that you look for in golf instruction.
Yeah, I've been influenced by a lot of people. I'd say having Cooper around at a young age kind of got me interested in the golfing machine. I actually bought my first copy at the age of 15. I believe it was a fourth edition. Kind of read it. A lot of it went over my head, but I was always pretty good at science and math. You know, kind of planned to go to engineering school pretty much throughout all high school. So I grasped enough of it to kind of understand the important things, definitely all the imperatives and essentials, and kind of based my teaching on that. Starting at age 16, I started teaching juniors and women's clinic every other week with my mom and a bunch of her friends. Kind of got me into teaching and really what I think made me as good as I am today, or what kind of sped up the process, wasn't the fact that I knew a lot, but starting early teaching, you make a lot of mistakes and then you learn from it. And I think I just got really good at learning how to communicate and kind of build a rapport with people and kind of get people to actually not only understand the point that we're trying to kind of get across, but then also be able to actually make changes and kind of hit the ball better as fast as possible. So starting early, I think just really made me refine my delivery. Then luckily, after I dropped out of school, I was teaching part-time and then actually got an associate's degree in golf management. And from there, I started teaching full-time. Ended up working for a company called Golf Tech that does high volume of lessons with some kind of 3D. Mostly it's indoors. They kind of use some 3D sensors to kind of tell where the body is. But the real thing that worked out there, having all the technology helped as far as just kind of being able to see things in a different way that kind of never thought about before. But in reality, the thing that helped the most is giving between, kind of 1,200 and 1,600 lessons a year for 3 years. No matter what, you're going to get pretty good if you teach that many people in that shorter period of time. I would say in those 3 years, I probably taught as many as lessons as most club pros do probably in a career, or at least 10, 15 years. Um, pretty much stacked up 8, 9, 10 lessons a day every day that you're working. Also got me kind of thinking and researching more about the golf swing. I would say believe it was around 2006, I met Andy Plummer and Mike Bennett, who are now relatively famous for the stack and tilt golf swing. And luckily through meeting them, I got to open up kind of my eyes to not only what they know about the golf swing, kind of how they present their material, but also I got to spend a lot of time around them when they're working with not only beginners, but also tour players. So I kind of got to see at a very young age an inside the ropes look at golf instruction. From there, I became an authorized instructor of the golfing machine right around that time as well. Got to work with, when I was in Orlando, got to work with a couple mini tour players, and it kind of just grew from there. Have kind of moved around a lot the last couple of years. So spent some time in Orlando, then moved to San Diego, where I met most of the tour players I teach now. And currently I'm kind of back in the North Florida area.
Still a relatively young man. Accomplished quite a bit in a short lifespan. Nick Starchuck, who was paradigms have changed. Where now, if you want to be if your passion is teaching, you want to enter that field. Most guys are not going to become third and fourth assistants. around handle the cart fleet or whatever else they have to do. Right now, you have the opportunity to just go out there and teach. And with the advent of the internet, incredible medium for communicating and circulating ideas, it behooves a lot of people to use it to their advantage in a way in which you don't have to limit yourself or pigeonhole yourself to any one technique. You can learn a lot from a lot of people. You can develop cyber mentors and things of that nature. How's the internet influenced what you've been doing?
I would say it's had a pretty profound impact. The internet's actually how I got hooked up with people that know Andy and Mike personally, which is how I eventually became involved with them. Actually happened to be pretty good friends with Nick Starchuk, and that kind of all started online. And then we met in person and since have done golf schools together. We're actually planning on, if all goes well, shooting a DVD together. I would say that through the internet, I've met great people that you've had on here, such as John Doherty, and really big people in the kind of golfing machine, Morad, stack and tilt community. Haven't met Manzello, but have certainly interacted with him on several occasions. And really just people who I think are great thinkers in the industry, people who kind of challenge the status quo, don't take anything at face value. And those are the people that you can learn from the most. And really, like you said, my goal is to kind of never really pigeonhole myself. Everything I teach is based off of ball flight. So we kind of just go in with the attitude of whatever ball flight you have or would like to have, we create a pattern kind of around that that's going to make that happen most often and kind of, the simplest, kind of changing as few pieces as possible. Just because if you make kind of huge total swing overhaul and the wholesale changes, obviously it's going to take a while for that stuff to stick in and people aren't getting better fast enough. And I think that's what kind of drives people away from the game. Nick talked about it just because I happened to watch his interview. Is that the big thing for me and what we stress in the golf schools we've done together is getting better right now. I think you should get better on the next shot you hit in front of it. You may not have total mastery of whatever we're working on, but if you can't get it in 5 or 6 swings, we're doing something wrong. It should be simple enough for you to grasp and understand, and it should be a change that could happen gradual enough to where you can see some sort of positive result kind of instantaneously. Not a big believer in that whole you're going to take 2 steps back, take 1 step forward.
Again, with the internet, what we're finding is that we don't have to, or most people are not going to have to be spoon-fed what's good and what's bad by for instance, the print media, television or radio. You're always going to be able to go online somewhere and get a critical review of anything. So if we want to find out who the good instructors are, you can always find 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 guys that took a lesson from that individual, as opposed to having to read on a magazine that he's top 100. Well, why was he top 100? Well, somebody referred him as whatever reason, other than teaching, he's a top 100 instructor. Nowadays, it's not going to be that. I think in the future, that's not going to happen. I think it's going to be word of mouth and real hands-on experience with the person. Same thing with equipment. It's not going to be, you're going to get a 4-star review from some guy who hit the clubs and golf magazine decided he's going to make that decision for you. Right now, you're able to get feedback on just about anything and get multiple points of view and be able to make a more informed decision. That's one of the things that the internet has given us. And at the same time, it's the one caveat with the internet is that there's also a lot of misinformation there. So it's easy to disseminate a bunch of misinformation, and there are people out there that put stuff out there, and it sounds real authoritative. And an unsuspecting person may come across and may even start abiding by whatever it is that they're reading. So I think it's careful. It's imperative people be careful what information, what the sources are, do their due diligence, double check what's going on. Again, what's made the tour today, what I see with the PGA Tour players today is that nobody's afraid anymore. All these young guys just come out and they just go for it. And I'm starting to see that in a new wave of teaching professionals. Just like the Camilo Villegas, the Anthony Kims, and these guys, and Ricky Fowler, they come out with their own unique swing that's personal to them. They're not looking to their left or to their right and watching what the other guy's doing. They don't really care. You see what I'm saying? Whereas in the 90s and the 80s, in the 90s particularly, Everybody wanted to look like Faldo. Everybody was going to Ledbetter. Guys were coming on tour with A games and intimidating themselves into believing that they should be, you know, that's not what's happening. And I think that's what's going to happen. Well, that's what's going on at the teaching end of it also. We have a lot of young guys like yourself that just do their homework and have a passion for it and develop these skills and don't worry about what's going on around you. You know, what do you think about those folks?
I would agree. And I also think that it helps in reality I got lucky as far as teaching tour players and kind of teaching some really good players. And I kind of didn't get thrust into the limelight. I kind of, still, most people have no clue who I am, even when I show up on Nationwide or PGA Tour driving range. So I think it helps me be a little more confident and cocky, just because nobody is looking over my shoulder. I'm not having people breathing down my neck, kind of recording every word I say, kind of nitpicking everything I do, which, like it or not, eventually when you reach the fame, Foley's kind of seeing that now. Annie and Mike have dealt with that. Kind of all the big name teachers have kind of dealt with putting something out there, and then they kind of have to go with it. Part of the dangers of the internet is that kind of once you say something or put something out there, it's out there for good. People can always find it. So if you kind of put your foot in your mouth or say something you shouldn't have or that was totally off base, people are going to find out about it and figure out, kind of long-term wise, the kind of people you talked about that are kind of declare themselves gurus of some sort and kind of just talk out of their rear end. People are going to kind of find out eventually kind of what has substance and what holds water. You're going to kind of see that with all the big names in internet golf instruction, people who've been around for a little while, the Manzelas, the Jeff Jones. I put myself up there fairly high, Dana Dahlquist, kind of all the guys that have a presence on all these forums for an extended period of time, kind of at least proven the fact that, well, not everything they say is going to be correct 100% of the time, and I would say none of those people listed are going to agree with me all the time. I certainly don't agree with all of them all the time. At least what they do, if both online and in person, works. There's some kind of track record there. Kind of, if you can get people to listen to you as long as some of these guys have, can't be all bad.
Absolutely. Are you working? Are you currently working with tour players?
Yes, I work with a number of guys, both either on the Nationwide Tour or partial status, and then a bunch of guys in college, and then on all the lower level mini tours. A couple guys on the Golden State Tour, the E-Golf Tour, the Hooters Tour, kind of all over. Biggest players that I work with right now are Brian Smuck, who finished 30 left, leading in greens and regulation up until the last event, finished third in that statistic. And then Clay Ogden, who most people know him as the guy who beat Michelle Wie and won the 2005 U.S. Publics. And while he hasn't kind of struggled at Q School, I'd say a little bit, so he hasn't gotten all the way out onto the PGA Tour, bigger tours, but in all the state opens, mini tour events, and nationwide events he's gotten into, he's seen it too pretty well. So I think long term he's going to be, a phenomenal golfer, and he's only 26 years old. So it's only going to get better. And then I work with a young kid named Sam Sear out of Hawaii, who's a two-time NAIA national champ, and he actually beat Dean Whip.
So where do you currently teach? How do we go about getting lessons?
People can contact me through, obviously, GolfWorks or any other forum or email. Basically, right now, I'm kind of just doing golf schools all over and then working with the tour players that I have. Currently don't have a home base. Kind of working on that. Kind of have a couple different opportunities. We talked a little bit about some of them before, but right now I don't really want to say anything because it's all up in the air. But I'll kind of continue to be doing golf schools at least part of the time. Right now, a lot of them are in the Southeast because that's where I live and that's where the weather is going to be at least somewhat helpful in having a golf school. There are going to be some cold days. And really, once the kind of PGA Nationwide Tour season starts there, I'm probably going to go to probably around 10 or 12 events out there this year. Like I said, the big thing for me is, and anybody who knows me on any forums, is I make myself available. I pretty much answer every message I get. Hopefully within a couple hours, all my emails go straight to my phone. Phone tends to kind of blow up constantly. Lady friend doesn't exactly like that, but getting calls, text messages, emails at all hours. But I try to be as good as possible about answering them. Because in reality, I don't spend all the time on those golf forums, for money or any kind of selfish reasons. I think I pretty much do it just because I enjoy helping people. While it is a decent advertising market, nobody spends the amount of time that Manzella does or any of these other guys do online make anywhere near the money that they would in any other avenue with the amount of time spent kind of helping others for absolutely nothing. And really, I think that's the noble thing about the internet. You got guys like Slice Fixer, Dana, Brian, all these guys with, Mike Maves with his website, where there's a bunch of good information out there for free, where people can kind of, at least whether they agree with it or not, can kind of have some sort of pathway to improve really at no cost. And you're talking about top rate information from guys who teach tour players, and they all should be on all these top 100 lists if I had to vote, or I think really if the people had to vote, the golf fans, because really the people that are on GolfWorks and all these other kind of forums and websites are really the diehard golfers. So that's the people that spend the money, and that's the people that I think should hold the most weight as far as judging who's good and who's not.
Absolutely. I mean, I could have said it better myself. And you're right. The fact that people even congregate at a place like uh, any one of these forums, normally it's, you know, you're going to run into passionate teachers and passionate golfers. So you're going to have the hardcore from both ends. I mean, if you're doing this, if you punch the clock and you come home and you're online still talking about golf, it means you're passionate about it, and you're doing it on your time and both ways. I mean, like you have the amateur, the guy who's just trying to, entertain himself. It's like-minded people coming together. And I think that's the wave of the future. There's no doubt that this is going to be the medium that's going to be determining who's who and what's what. And again, there are a lot of great teachers out there that are just coming to the forefront as a result of the internet. I mean, otherwise, you could, and that's actually the best thing that's happened to golf and golf instruction. It's not just teaching, not just from also, there's golf equipment, there's golf this, there's golf, and you're going to get again, you're going to get an unbiased critical review for the most part. Somebody may have an axe to grind and but for the most part, that's what's going to happen. Unless you have anything else you'd like to add. Do you think you like to add anything?
Well, I think we're set enough. We can all get pretty long-winded at times. Basically, it is what it is. Love what I do. Lucky enough to do what I love kind of every single day. Really just, big thing that drives me is making people better. Nothing kind of more personally fulfilling. That's what it is in all teaching, whether it's teaching golf, teaching at your local high school or middle school. Pretty much everybody's in it for the same reason. They want to make better people. And my goal as a golf instructor is not only make people better, but really just enjoy the game more. Pretty laid back, like to have a good time. Anybody who's come to a golf school or taken a lesson from me knows that it's not very serious as far as kind of the attitude that goes around, and it's really just about kind of just enjoying yourself and having as much fun as possible. Because I think the more you enjoy golf, the better you're going to be at it. I think that's also why some tour players start struggling, because they start, like we talked about earlier, it gets stressful, you stop loving it. It's hard to put in the time when you don't love it anymore.
It becomes more than just a game. Gets tough. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Dan. I think we're going to hear good things from you in the future. We're hedging our bets to keep you in our corner, because I got a funny feeling that guys like yourself and Star Chuck and all these other young instructors out there that are grabbing the bull by the horns and reaching out to people and doing the right thing. Good things happen over the long run. and we look forward to hearing from you in the future. Thank you for your time, Dan.
No problem. Appreciate it.
All right. Stay on the line, buddy.